I can also hold up a copy when the time is right. Okay.
We're going live. So I'm super excited.
I can also hold up a copy when the time is right. Okay.
Okay, cool. We're going live. Oh, so I'm super excited. Okay. So this is Dr. Cynthia Glickman, yes, the Joy Doctor, and I'm so excited to share today with Walter Zajac. Is that how?
Zajac. Zajac. Yeah. Thank you.
And welcome back, all thousands of beautiful souls that have an opportunity to watch this today. And where we here on Messages from the Universe like to explore different ideas, explore what reality really is. And thanks to having Walter today, I'm super excited that you're one of the best known psychics on the West Coast, from what I understand. So
I have a good publicist.
Yeah, but you have a pretty amazing story. And I suppose nowadays, especially with what's going on in the world and Ukraine and Russia, you might have some insights into that as well.
Yeah. So let's just get into it. I guess my story starts in war-torn Germany, 11 years after World War II ended. And 36 cities, according to Exeter University in the UK, 36 cities in Germany were anywhere from 80 to 95% leveled by American and British bombers, because the Nazis were hiding munitions factories and tank factories and you name it, military stuff in amongst the population. And the Americans and British had really no other option than to just do what they call carpet bombing, which is just row after row of bombs coming down. And just like mowing a lawn, you end up devastating a city. And even 11 years after the war had ended, I was 6 and my city was still about 50% bombed out shells of buildings and rubble. So the images that we see.
Yeah, what a wild environment. I mean, not to mention the typical home environment or the home issues, but yeah. And
so we would take the bus downtown and block after block after block was just bombed out shells of buildings and rubble. Mariupol in Ukraine looked that way or worse, because a lot of those buildings are still standing in Mariupol. In my city, they weren't. They're just leveled. So the whole point is poverty. It was a very poor country. The population of my city went from 236,000 to 50,000 in 6 years' time, 1939 to 1945.
Wow.
Yeah. And a regular occurrence was seeing men without an arm, without a leg. A friend of my father's was missing both legs. He got around on a 4-wheel cart next to the ground, just like Eddie Murphy did in Trading Places. Right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
Was faking it. Yeah. And scary to see stuff like that. And violence, so much anger because it was a defeated nation, and so much poverty, right? And at that point, German law was that you could take your kid into a bar, and he did. He was my father was a raging alcoholic, drunk wife beater, and I would frequently end up at the bar with him, see bar fights, and be exposed to all kinds of adult stuff, including stopping at the porno kiosk afterwards and watching videos. While
we might have some of that in common, because
I saw that about your book, The Daughter of a Porn King. Yeah.
My dad produced and distributed it. But, interestingly enough, I lived in the Czech Republic for a year and taught English there. And this was 93-ish, somewhere in there. So it was only a few years after the wall had fallen.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Poland, and even at that time in Poland, at least my experience of it was that there were a lot of people that were alcoholics due to, I think, all the traumas that have happened in that region.
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't ride in a car until I was 7 years old. Almost nobody had a car. And so the point was, very poor nation. And I was excited because I was going on a train ride, and I had a older half brother, half sister, 10 years and 6 years older than me. They got to do all kinds of stuff that I didn't get to do. I was just really pumped about, I get to go on a train ride. And the Red Cross lady took me on a 2-hour train ride. And after about a 30-minute walk through the countryside, I ended up at a place called orphanage, which was a word I'd never heard before. And the headmistress told me I was never going home again. So, wow. Yeah, devastated, right? Just immediate loss of power. And by the
way, I'm going to stop you since I see your book in the back. And if you want to share that, because the story is, okay, there we go.
Is that a good view?
Yeah, awesome. They came beyond Deja Vu.
Yeah.
I know that part of the book is going to talk about how you discovered your psychic abilities, but for those that want to hear more about the story you're sharing with us, go check that out. It's on Amazon. So, all right, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, orphanage, devastated. No way to even process that, where to put it. And I ended up staying at the orphanage for a year, and then I was adopted by an American Air Force couple, and they were abusive. Within 3 weeks, I was being spanked so hard that my bare bottom was drawing blood.
What do you think? Why did they adopt you?
That was
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Too.
Like, I mean, I think it's wonderful that a family would that they wanted you, but they're aggressive. Why would they too?
You know, I through therapy, which was about 25 years ago. About 25 years ago, I was in therapy, and I slowly figured out that they were pretty messed up too. They had abused childhoods, and they were angry as adults. They were angry about just about everything. You know, whatever was on the news, what the referee did at a football game, just, oh my God, so much anger. And then, of course, that was taken out on whoever was in their area, right? Which was me. And so what was significant about the book and the psychic experience is that before I went to the orphanage, I had 2 imaginary friends. They were teenage girls. And I had done 2 things. First of all, I had seen for each of them a very traumatic experience that they went through, and I saw it in vivid detail over and over and over. The first one was a horrific accident, and I had gone to a movie with my brother and thought that I had seen this movie about this girl who, you know, I fell in love with her because she was so sweet. Her family was so nice and kind. She went on a trip with her truck driver father, a big semi truck loaded with freight. They had a horrific accident. And I saw all of this happening, including the surgery. She had a near-death experience, and I saw that. I went with her to the other side, and I saw the day that the bandages were taken off her disfigured face. And I tried to talk to my brother about it afterwards, and that's not the movie we saw. We didn't see that movie. You're crazy, right? And he wasn't very nice a lot of the time, so he would just say, you're crazy.
So did you experience it through a dream state, or did you have?
Well, that's next. You're right with me. Thank you. You're right with me. I realized that, well, yeah, I had fallen asleep during the movie that my brother saw in the theater, and I had had a vision. But the fascinating thing is I had that vision over and over and over and over. I saw those details over and over. Plus, the second thing was that I interacted with her. She became a friend. And in her traumatic experience, she was left completely and entirely alone and scared to death, and reaching out to the psychic world, which is exactly what I was doing when I arrived at the orphanage. And both of these became constant companions, especially in the orphanage, and then after the years after, you know, just to comfort me, right? To help me deal with the loneliness and the abuse later. And then here's the psychic part. When I was 44, I met them both in real life. both of them. And I'll use the accident. Huh?
At the same time or in different?
Yeah, within 6 months of each other. The first one that I met was the one who was in the horrific accident. And I had actually been talking to her for a few years. By this point, I was working a day job. I had had a music career before that, but I was working a day job, not particularly happy because nobody claps at day jobs, right? And I was used to playing in front of hundreds or thousands of people. And I was miserable, but one day, and this voice I had talked to for 3 years, I needed to call her company and she was the receptionist and she had this gorgeous voice that just totally melted my heart, but it was only 1 moment, please, I'll connect you. We're just, oh, and one day I made her laugh.
So your heart identified her, it knew.
Yes, but just the voice, right? And then no connection to childhood.
But it's energy, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And after a few years, one day I made her laugh, and I made her laugh uncontrollably. And when we laugh together, we connect our souls, we connect our hearts, we see each other in the really genuine, deep way. We see each other. And from that day forward, we started talking. And it was a phone relationship. I did see her once in my life in person, but mostly it was phone. And after a few weeks, she said, I have to confess something to you. I was in a horrible accident and my face got really disfigured. I've had 17 operations, but I'm still all scarred up. And then she started to tell me the story of the accident. I finished the story for her. And I finished the story in detail. And then over the next couple of weeks, I told her 5 things that she had never told another person, ever. Stuff like she went on a near-death experience. She had never shared that. The fact that she was above her body in the truck cabin, seeing herself. She had never shared that. What happened when the bandages were taken off. She had never shared that. And that was beautiful at first, and she also, in our connection and laughing and in that deep seeing of each other, we all of us have that experience. Not all of us, many of us have that experience where you meet somebody and you just feel like you've known them all your life, right? Just, oh, I know you. Didn't we grow up together? So we had that, but no connection until I finished the story. And then it started freaking her out. How does this creepy dude know this stuff? What is this?
So she didn't have any awareness of an energy or a being that was connecting to her.
No, she had no awareness of having interacted with me as an imaginary friend, right? And the biggest reason was that was 15 years before she was born.
Yeah.
And so then, because she freaked out, naturally, of course she freaked out, right? Because she thought one of two things: either I was really creepy and messing with her, had harmful intentions, or I was nuts. I was crazy. And so she severed the relationship. And for me, that was almost as devastating as the day I arrived at the orphanage. Right.
Okay.
It was like, because that was my connection to who I was and trying to figure out who am I and then what. Yeah. And then also I was put in a place where, because of the orphanage experience, I had up until that point seen my life from the perspective of a victim. And my first response was, the universe is messing with me, right? And people go there sometimes. I didn't like God very much, right? It's like, what the hell? You can't do this. And the wonderful thing is, it's the very thing that caused me to realize I need some help. I need some help dealing with this. And good friends had been telling me for a lot of years, dude, you need some help. Because
so I just kind of love to highlight this. Like, so that was the turning point for you at 44, that number one, you needed help.
Yep.
And then also I want to look at, like, okay, so before that you were like, God, why, and so what I would imagine at some point then your relationship with God or the universe transformed too. So I want to hear about that.
It did. And here's why. The psychologist that I found is the daughter of a Toltec shaman, and many people in the audience may know that's the tradition of the teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. Don Juan Matus was a Toltec shaman, and Carlos Castaneda became one. He was an apprentice, and through the series of books and over time, he became a Toltec shaman. And then Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote The Four Agreements, is a Toltec shaman. It's a shamanic tradition in Central and South America that goes back thousands of years, maybe as much as 10,000. And it has ancient, incredible wisdom and information. And if you've ever studied anything about what shamans do, I don't know the plural of that word, shaman, because men doesn't seem right.
I don't know.
Right?
I think it's just shaman, right?
Yeah.
They're shaman, I guess. Yeah, they're shamans.
So
anyway.
Her father was the Toltec shaman. And since her earliest memories, he had taken her to other realities and other worlds. And this was real. Wow. This was actually happening, right?
Because lady too. All right.
Because wow.
Can we all? So when you're in Vegas, can we all get together? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Well, I could give you her information. Yeah. Yeah. She actually wrote a testimony on the back of my book, Vanita Ramirez.
Awesome.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Well, you too, though. I mean, you have to be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you. But she, of course, told me what she had experienced as a child, and I shared what was happening to me. Right? And she said, Walter, that's nothing compared to what I experienced. You're not crazy. You're psychic. You're psychic. And that was the first person who ever told me that, yeah, dude, that's what you are. I had indications that I got psychic information like many of us do. I'd had dreams come true actually, but she, and especially coming from her perspective of what she had experienced, she knew, right, that, yeah, you're a psychic. Right. And then that was the beginning. And then through the therapy, what she helped me find, and it's what I do with my clients, and apparently you do too, and that is to find loving Walter, and especially little Walter, because that's the dude that got messed up, right? And realizing that little Walter was beautiful, right? And whenever we are able to tune into our 5-year-old selves, my goodness, all of us at 5 years old, we're precious, we're innocent, we're sweet. We're still in tune with where we came from, the spirit world, so we're wise, right? But we are beautiful. And just connecting with him and learning to really love little Walter, being able to look in the mirror, and I couldn't say, look into adult Walter's eyes and say, I love you, Walter, even though she wanted me to. But when I finally looked in the mirror and saw little Walter's eyes, I loved him immediately because he's beautiful, right? And then the other thing that she brought to me was now. And if you're going to be happy now, if you're going to have fun now, where are you right now? Right? Because I lived my thoughts in fantasy of, well, that was crap. What happened to me? And fantasy of, oh, I hope someday it gets better. Right. But I wasn't living now. And then in particular, it's what you teach, I'm sure. And that is, boy, if you're not having fun now, when? Right. And since now is all we ever have, that's when you can have fun. It's when you can make choices. It's the only time you have power. It's the only thing that actually exists is right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still hear people say, oh, when I have this, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
When I have this, then, well, okay. So when that happens, so in the meantime, what are you doing?
In the meantime, what, during therapy, what am I doing? Is that what you mean?
No. I'm saying just like in general, when people are like, oh, when I have the bigger house, then I'll be happy.
Oh, I see. Right.
When I get through this mess, then I'll be happy. When I get, into the perfect relationship, then I'll be happy, instead of just choosing to be happy right now.
Yep.
So,
yeah. So, and then that's what she really taught me. But then there was one other thing that is the ending of the book, which I'm not going to reveal, but it was so meaningful to me. It was figuring out who I really am. And that is throughout my life, beginning before the orphanage and After the orphanage, I was being controlled and manipulated and chased by a man dressed entirely in black. Had this nightmare
so this
over
was
and
a
over.
vision? Oh, it was a nightmare. Okay.
It was a nightmare over and over and over, almost every night, sometimes a couple of times during the night. And I would see this man in visions, and he would just scare the complete crap out of me. And I could never figure out why. I was like I was haunted. So that's the end of the book, is I figured out who that is.
Yeah, I think I have an idea of who that is.
Well, people do. And I didn't, right?
Do we have to read the book to find out?
Yes, you do. But, the significant thing was I didn't know who that was. And the reason I share it, it's why you share your life story, why you wrote the book, The Daughter of a Porn King, is just to show people that the extremes that a lot of us live. And I'm talking about everybody in your audience. Most people have endured some kind of extreme. And for those of us who go through extremes, it's normal. It's normal. It's the only life we know. There's no other life that we have to compare to, not consciously. Right? It's normal.
So you have to get comfortable with that, right? You have to get and then the easier it becomes. And
figure out who you are relative to how crappy they treated you, or relative to the things that they exposed you to. Right? You were exposed to pornography. I was sexually abused by two women who exposed me to their sexuality at 5 years old and younger. It happened for years.
Yeah.
So that changes a person, right? And my psychologist said, well, yeah, that was sexual abuse, right? And then we started working on that. Yeah.
Well, and I try to be careful about getting too political, especially here on YouTube, but now they're trying to, but now they're trying to normalize it. It's really bizarre stuff happening right now. So, anyway, so I think that it's important that we recognize that that is not normal, and that creates traumas. And you're actually very blessed and fortunate that it didn't. It created a challenge in your life all the way up until you were 44, until you started to heal it, right?
But it took a significant number of years after that. Every person has a different experience with sexual abuse. And sadly, I've done some research on statistics since it really impacted my life. And that is almost no cases of childhood sexual abuse ever get reported. 25% at the most. Of those, only 5% of the perpetrators ever get punished in any way. And then of those that do get reported, statistically, 80% are a parent or a loved one. A parent, right? So for the child that's being abused, there's love involved. This is a person who I love, and he or she is touching me in loving ways. There's usually some kind of affection involved, right? And yet, especially for little boys that are abused by a man, that's horrifying what then happens. And in my case, and then the reason I bring this up is because there's love involved, there's also some level of enjoyment, some pleasure, right?
Yeah, you're getting
and
this
physical pleasure, right? And in my case, since it was two women, I actually enjoyed it. I wasn't feeling forced. I wasn't feeling abused, even though I figured out later that, you can't tell anybody that happened. And it became a deep, dark secret, which then I didn't classify as abuse, but boy, it sure is, right? And then for the rest of my life, I felt guilty about sexual thoughts, about masturbation, about having sex. And that messed with me. And it wasn't until after I started my therapy that I heard about tantric sex. And people who may know that tantric sex, tantric anything, is enjoying it to the absolute fullest, being completely in the moment and prolonging it, right? And so that was my avenue to figuring out how to make sex something that I could allow myself to enjoy, allow myself pleasure without feeling guilty. And boy, that changed everything. Now sex is, let's do that. That's beautiful, right? Whereas before it was, Before it was, well, I don't know, right? You may not like me, and I don't know. And then frequently,
Well,
because of the guilt, I couldn't perform, the way a
I
man
was
is
gonna say,
supposed
because
to.
you're like, yeah, it's all weighing on you, guilt, shame, those are part of the things that bog everyone down, whether
Yeah.
it's your experience or just other life experiences that keep us from experiencing joy, because it's like this weight that just keeps pushing you down and under, right? So that you're not able to be free to explore and experience things in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
so it's amazing though. I love your journey. And I mean, what would you say to somebody that is still living in a victim mentality and how they could transcend that?
The most effective tool that I have found literally for enjoying this moment is gratitude. Gratitude. Figure out anything to be grateful for about that person who is upsetting you, about the situation that's upsetting you, about the life you've been living that's upsetting you. Gratitude. Figure out stuff that you're thankful for. And the moment we think of one, our discomfort becomes eased, right? If we're able to think of two or three, then we may even start smiling and maybe even giggling.
Yeah.
And in that process, we're doing several things. We're enjoying the moment, having fun, which is happiness, since now is all we ever have. If you're going to be happy, it's got to be now. And we're decreasing the level of fear that we're getting from this situation.
If you're in gratitude, you can't be, you don't experience those negative emotions. Yeah,
yep.
It pulls you out of it.
And we're decreasing our own level of emotional pain.
But by the way, being in the moment, I apologize, but I want to just point out, thank you for matching me today. I'm glad that you caught, you picked up that memo energetically. Like, I'm teasing because we both have blue. I don't know. Anyway, sidebar.
Oh, I wasn't catching that right at first. Yes. Yes.
Like,
your hair is much really nicer than mine.
You really are psychic.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, and then I wanted to say the fourth thing that we're doing by bringing gratitude into the moment is we're forgiving. We're forgiving, whether it's gratitude. Well, my abusive adopted parents. My father was an amateur musician, and he got a big thrill out of buying me instruments because I had a talent, right? And so he literally facilitated a music career, which is where I buried myself. I could be real comfortable behind a drum set in front of thousands of people, but in a social situation, I would just turn beet red and be uncomfortable. So he brought me that, and just that gratitude of thank you, man. You were an asshole, but thank you. Right? That helps. It really helps because now I can laugh about it.
Yeah. But also, I mean, there's so many things that could happen. And, I've got three different thoughts going, so I apologize. Sometimes that happens to me.
I'll try to keep up. Okay.
So, a lot of times I think people get into this idea, yeah, but your life is easy. Yeah, but you don't have my problems. And I think that's why it's good to hear like your story, for example, because it's very devastating. It's very heart-wrenching. It's very traumatic, but we can all transcend those things.
Yeah. To me, that's the message in the book, is that, well, having done this work, just like you do helping people for almost 20 years, I am aware that when I share my vulnerability, it makes them feel safer. It makes them feel like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. And then they can talk about it, right? And so for me, that's the main reason to write the book, to help people understand that what they went through, first of all, is normal, simply because that's the only normal that they know, right? And yet, no, it wasn't. It was usually twisted as hell. And there is a way, like you're saying, to recover. And, okay, yeah, you can use a psychologist, go to a psychologist, but you have to do the work, like You have to do the
Yeah,
work. You
and
have to
so
participate.
totally. And you know, one of the things that tends to hold a lot of people back is when they say, well, I just can't forgive. And it actually, you can, you're just choosing not to. And it may be difficult, right?
Yeah.
To do
Yeah.
it.
But that's when the gratitude comes in. And it's one of the things I teach. I'm sure you do too. And that is just one moment at a time. If you can figure out something to be grateful for about that person or that experience, then you've made this moment better. And then that gives you a better, higher platform, a better feeling platform for the next moment that you can make feel a little better.
Yeah.
And it's just one at a time. And then also praising ourselves. You know, I love to do that, especially once I got in tune with little Walter, to just say, wow, we kicked ass today. That was good, right? Or, yeah, man, the fact that you can be grateful for that, that's good. Good for you, Walter.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like you said, it's a relationship with the 5-year-old. It might be a relationship with the 8-year-old too, because, and what I mean by that, right? So something might have happened at 8 that impacted your life, or 9, or so there's a great tool. And so I want to go back to the forgiveness, like something that you can do is you know, as we think about these positive things, sometimes there's a drag because people haven't actually released the lower vibes or the lower traumas, or, you know, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I have some tools, but do you have anything that you would share on how to let go of the other stuff that pulls them back? I mean, saying affirmations, for example. Well, affirmations can't really make their way if there's other, like if you're consciously, or I'm sorry, unconsciously holding on to other negativities. Did that make sense? I rambled a little bit there.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have found that for everybody, the trauma that we went through, the thing that affected us very deeply, happens at different ages. So in my work, I take them to that trauma and help them overcome it through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, plus using my psychic ability and tools that I've learned in my own therapy, my own work. And then no matter what purpose a person is seeking my help for, the thing that is most effective, the thing that I have found changes their life the most, is still going back to that sweet, innocent, precious little one, whether it's 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, going to that place where we recognize we're beautiful. We're beautiful. And the moment we can do that, then we put ourselves in a position where we can accept other people saying we're beautiful. Because until we realize that we're beautiful, if somebody comes along and says you're beautiful or you're amazing, which we all want, you know, when we're in love, we want them to think we're amazing, right? But if I've never thought that I'm amazing, every time she says I'm amazing, I'm going to think she's either trying to manipulate, or she's trying to get something from me, or she's stupid. Because I'm not amazing, right? So that's the key, to really go to a place where you see such beauty in yourself. And for most of us, that's the child, that you're amazing, that you can accept other people's love. And then especially that you can accept the good stuff you want, abundance, prosperity, and love.
So, I might add a little piece to that too, is also compassion, because that's part of the training that I have done a master level compassion key, it's called, but going back and loving that child, right? And also giving them compassion for what they did experience. And so 2 things I want to tag into, and then I want to have you take the ball and run with something.
Okay.
So also, like the giving the forgiveness, you can go into the field, into the energetic field, or I don't know if you have a name for it, where you can connect into, let's say that it was a parent and they've passed on, for example, or it's a parent and you don't currently talk to them. you don't have to pick up the phone and have a 3D conversation. You can connect into them energetically and have a higher consciousness conversation. And
Yes.
like, you're smiling, so you go, run with it, baby.
Yeah. I talk about that all the time with something as simple as if I'm just doing a psychic session and she wants to know, is he going to call me? Right? I can make a prediction, but you're going to speed up the process of him calling you sooner if you constantly are feeling him, loving him, thinking good thoughts about him, and literally in that psychic world, connecting with him, feeling the love. Because quantum physics has said it, that we're all interconnected, we're all energy, and all this energy gets mingled. And so when we are having thoughts, well, what's ESP? Extrasensory perception, right? When we are having thoughts, people literally are able to, and more often than not do, pick up on what we're feeling. And so if you want the boyfriend to call and feel safe in calling you and feel excited about calling you, then have exciting thoughts about him. Exciting thoughts in that space, right? In other words, to literally be in that world where it's not just a fantasy, but you and he are there together.
Yes. So, because think of it, the energy of, is he going to call me? Energetically, that's putting out a lack of certainty about it, right? A lack of confidence in it.
Yeah.
And so it's energetically potentially pushing that person away. It's actually going to prolong the process of them actually calling, right?
Absolutely. Abraham Hicks talks about, if you think about what you don't want, you end up manifesting what you don't want, right? And in a situation like that, most people end up thinking, oh, he's not going to call. He's such a for not calling. Yeah, right. And so then literally you're pushing it away, like you said. Yeah.
And so if he's picking up, or she, I guess it depends on which, if they're picking up on that vibe, they're going to feel it, and they're not even going to know why. They're going to feel like, oh, I don't know if I want to
absolutely
call that person back.
and then calling that person doesn't feel safe, because we take the risk of that person saying, well, you humana, you haven't called me, right?
Yeah, humana.
Yeah. Sorry not to swear.
It's okay. I think, I'm grown up. I have 2 older brothers. I've heard it before.
I know you have. Yeah.
And I don't remember this exercise that I used to use, but I think this is it. Like, oh, I'm so certain, or I'm so excited, I can't wait. Like, he's going to call me any minute, right? Or this is going to happen any minute. I'm so excited. And if you really can feel into that, like, you can create that thing coming towards you.
And this may be a little bit controversial for some people, but I encourage both men and women to fantasize about the most fantastic sex that they had with that person, to literally be there having that sex, because fantastic sex, I have found, is generally there not so much because of technique, but because of connection, because I feel so much. And the moment you're able to recreate that in your mind, then you're connected, then the love is there. And then he or she on the other end gets excited because, oh, that feels good. Maybe I should call. Right.
So, and it doesn't have, I mean, that's certainly one that could get all the juices flowing, right? It doesn't have to be sexual, though. It could be just anything that makes you feel
romantic
or excited about. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and tag on to what you're talking about. So this is kind of law of attraction, right? And so what I want to understand is, so if you had this vision of these circumstances that played out years and years later, like, how do you explain the timelines, right? Like, something that hadn't happened in this third dimension yet And was that destined to happen? Like, could they have changed that reality? So there's a few questions in that question.
Okay, so yes and no. So first of all, how does it happen? Well, Einstein said over 100 years ago, there is no time, and that has been proven scientifically ever since, that time is a construction of our awareness. And ideally, there is no time. Quantum physicists, I love that word because it's hard to sound sober when you say physicist, physicist, and hard to be serious. So quantum physicists also are recognizing that we create our reality through the choices that we make. But when we make a different choice than the one we originally considered, we literally create two timelines, the one we originally considered and the new choice. And quantum physicists say that there are literally multiple universes existing within this universe. So that means that, they were born, they weren't born until 15 years later. And so I tuned into Beyond Time, the spirit world, where they existed already as spirit entities. And then I tuned in specifically, and this is something that my psychologist helped me recognize, and that is, not only did I tune in to the spirit world to have two imaginary friends to help me through this devastating loneliness, but I picked two that were going to end up being in my life physically, so that I had no other choice than to seek a shrink.
So I don't think you told us about the second one, though. You told us about the woman with the voice.
Yeah. The second one was 6 months later, after I started my therapy, and my psychologist said it, and my awareness too was, well, this is just to prove to myself that the first one was real. And there too, I was able to finish her story and to tell her things that she had never told anybody else. Right. And again,
how did you connect with her? How did that synchronicity happen?
That one, I was working as a part-time musician while I was doing day jobs and working 3 or 4 nights, playing music 3 or 4 nights a week. And she was a bartender at this place I was playing. And we just started talking and flirting, right? And then there was this sense of recognition. And then after a few weeks of knowing her, then she started to tell me her horrific story. And I finished the story. And
wow.
It described.
Did she freak out too, or was she did.
More? It was really beautiful at first, right? But then relatively quickly, she began to feel like, well, that's just creepy as hell. How could you possibly know this stuff? And yeah, it is, right? Because either I have really bad.
But if you're open to this kind of stuff, it might be like, wow, let's explore that more. Like, I don't know. I'd be kind of fascinated to find out more personally.
If you're open, right? But
yeah,
they weren't necessarily, they had some awareness, and they both felt this recognition of me, not in detailed recognition, but this sense of, yeah, I feel like I know you. But that was the extent of their openness.
Yeah.
And, and then let's be real, this was, when was that? 94. So there was internet, but barely, right? So there wasn't a way for me to do research, and the only way that I could have done research was to interrogate all of their friends and family and find out all kinds of stuff. And anybody that does that has creepy intentions, right? And if it wasn't that, then how do we explain this? Maybe he's nuts. Right, which hurt like all hell, especially because friends had told me, yeah, dude, you need some help.
Yeah, but what's interesting though is like that is probably not a trigger anymore for you. If somebody calls you nuts now, what do you think about it?
I giggle.
Yeah,
and I say thank you, because to me being and that's to me, nuts, in a joking sense, nuts is just being free and enjoying the moment. That's nuts, because more often than not, people take life pretty seriously. And one of my favorite quotes is from a American poet in the 1800s named Albert Hubbard. He said, "Don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive."
Yeah, no matter what you do.
And to me, that's, that says, yeah, we only have so much time, and now's when you can do it, whatever it is.
Well, So, but with this experience, would you say that do you believe in multiple lives and well, reincarnation, different timelines, blah, blah, blah?
I do now.
Yeah.
I didn't then. Before my therapy, even though friends would give me evidence, even though I read a book, can't remember the full title, but it was about a woman named Bridie Murphy who was taken through hypnosis back to previous lives. And then in this life, she went to those places and literally saw the things that she had seen in hypnosis, the physical evidence of where she had lived previous lives. But, and even though I had read that book and some other books, my feeling was, are you kidding? Why would I ever want to come back here? This place sucks, right? Because my life up until that point hadn't been particularly fun.
Right.
So, but then therapy and then getting in tune with my own psychic ability. And then also as in my work, I'm a psychic medium. I tune into people who have died and connect them. Uncle Bob who died, connect Uncle Bob with Susan who's alive. And I know that I'm tuning into Uncle Bob because in every session, I don't go on until Bob has shown me three things that connect the two of them: her favorites, her least favorites, his favorites, or a moment that they had where they just were close, right? And until I prove to Susan that it's Uncle Bob, whatever message I have is useless, right? And the reason I'm giving this credibility is consistently the people, entities on the other side are saying, oh my God, I didn't love enough. I didn't show you my love enough. I didn't spend enough time loving you. I didn't tell you enough. And I didn't have enough fun. And the big message is I can't do any of that now because nobody on this side is listening. Most of us don't want to see a spirit in the room. We don't want to hear voices. And so we tune that stuff out. And so Uncle Bob has been trying to say, dude, now have fun and tell your sister she's going to be okay, right? But nobody's listening, right? And so then along with that information, there's this information of my life and the death that I experienced. You know, this is the message to Susan, who's still alive. And that is, baby, you couldn't have done anything about it. This was my outline for my life. This is what I wanted to experience. And next time I'll do something different. Right. And so that gave me confirmation that, okay, I think there is reincarnation, plus reading books about near-death experiences, books by Dr. Raymond Moody, who was one of the foremost near-death experience researchers, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and there are others. Reading those books, no matter what religion, culture, language, country people come from, their experiences on the other side, their near-death experiences are consistently the same. And that's one of the things that they talk about is that, this is just one of the lives.
Yeah. I have a couple of interesting personal experiences with it. And, and I wanted to go back to, healing the child that, and one particular experience popped into my mind. I was working with she was actually kind of a friend and a client, I guess. And we ended up in a past life for her. And she was carrying and never knew why she was carrying all of this guilt and, I don't remember what all the other negative emotions were, but mainly it was guilt. And we ended up in a past life where she was able to self-identify that she had committed suicide as a teenager. And what was fascinating about it is her particular situation. Her daughter had also passed at the same age she was when she committed suicide in her previous life.
Wow.
And so it was a coming to terms with forgiving herself and coming into this lifetime and being able to heal losing her daughter and reconnecting with her daughter who wasn't physically here anymore. So I've been an outsider kind of facilitating those situations that I'm like, I don't have any scientific evidence, but I can literally see a person going from a sort of darkened energy field and all of a sudden coming out of an experience like that where they are just a total light.
Yeah.
And so, something happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
one of my favorites is a guy named Daniel Brinkley, who died and came back to life 3 times and wrote 3 books about it. And beginning with the second time that he went to the other side, he realized that he had been here before, realized what was happening, and paid attention. And one of the things that he writes about that just really moves me is that we are here to overcome challenges. First of all, we're here to truly understand the actual essence of who we are, and that is created in the image and likeness of God, of Goddess, which means we are all the wonderful, amazing, beautiful things that God or Goddess is. But how do we know what it is to be beautiful unless we have something to compare it to, unless we have a framework within which to understand beautiful? And that's why we come to the physical world, is to get that framework. We experience ugliness, we experience hatred, we experience violence in order to understand our true nature better. But in experiencing these things, we overcome challenges. And Daniel Brinkley says that one of the most beautiful things about our lives when we observe is that when you've overcome a challenge, you feel so good about yourself. You're just in tune with everybody. You love yourself. You think you're amazing and you love everybody, right?
Yeah.
But then we get bored because that's nice for a while. Thank you, right? But
now we need a new challenge to
we get bored, right?
More.
And so whether that's subconscious, which it is for most of us, or conscious, we choose another challenge. And then we end up overcoming that challenge. And then that's when we're the happiest we will ever be, right? And so he says, here's the beautiful part. And that is, not only are we uplifting ourselves when we overcome a challenge, we are literally contributing to the upliftment of the entirety of creation. The entirety of creation. And that is this mass consciousness that Carl Jung talked about, that many spiritual teachers talk about. Mass consciousness is what we have. In other words, we are all one. And when we as individuals overcome and find strength and find enlightenment, we're literally contributing to the enlightenment and strength of mass consciousness.
Yeah, and you're super awesome. I love you.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
We could keep going, but we're almost out of time here.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So I would like to direct people to your website, psychicwalter.com.
Yes, thank you.
And can you? I'd like for you to. What do you think is the most important thing to leave people with? And then how can they find you, book an appointment, whatever? Okay.
You can book an appointment on psychicwalter.com, and click on any appointment link, and it directs you to when I'm available and how to make an appointment. The book is available as a paperback, as a Kindle, and as an audiobook that I narrate, and that's on amazon.com. And you can also go to walterzajac.com. And then the thing that I want to leave people with is the same message that you have, and that is have fun, have fun, have fun, have fun. Love, 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 love. And when? Now. That's all we got.
Now. Yes. Awesome. I love it.